Welcome to another episode of Dad Up, everyone. Thank you guys very much for joining me again for another episode with a phenomenal guest. I'm really excited to dive into this gentleman's backstory as well as the things he's doing now because, he and I kind of follow the same kind of paths as really helping parents be better for their children and to help build a relationship between a father and a child, or a mother and a child, or just parents in general and their children. So I'm really excited to hear about him and what he has to share with you all. But my good friend, Luke Entrup, has joined me on Dad Up. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Thank you so much, Brian. I'm thrilled to be here. I love what you are doing with the show and excited to join you today.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to this. I did do a little bit of, as we always do when we have podcasts, we do a little bit of research on our guests. And so I see that you've got a couple things in the works as far as retreats and things like that, but we're going to get into all that. But I want to know the backstory of you, because you and I have probably met over the last couple months, I want to say, maybe the last month or so, month or two. And so I don't know a whole lot about your backstory. So that's why I'm curious, as well as my listeners or viewers. So let's start with that. Let's start about, how you grew up and the kind of the things you were into and how it led you to where you are today. And then obviously this is a parenting dad podcast. So I want to know about your family as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to share a little bit about it. Yeah. So, I spend my days, I should just say, as a leadership coach. So I help people, just become better leaders. And in doing that, I also spent a lot of time helping people navigate transitions, right? And I think back about my own life and having some very pivotal moments of being led through important transitions in my lifetime. And I grew up in the Midwest. I was basically grew up on stage. I was like a child actor, if you will, and just that was my whole life. And at some point in my late teens, it just wasn't the thing to do anymore. And there was a period of kind of disillusionment and kind of a lack of purpose, kind of stuck in the mud, spinning my wheels through those late teens, early 20s. And then my father invited me to a men's weekend, a rites of passage weekend. And it really profoundly impacted me. I was surrounded by 80 men that were, really kind of in their power and connected to their heart and their sense of purpose and mission and serving themselves and their families and their communities. And I just saw in that a whole new way that I could be in the world. And it left a pretty big mark around, sending me on a path of supporting other people to live, men in particular, to live a more kind of conscious, intentional life around life of service rather than kind of the selfish goals. And that's been now a 20 plus year journey that has led me to, at this point in my life, really being a guide for rites of passage, helping people navigate important transitions, particularly helping boys become men and with the support of their fathers. So that's a bit of my origin story. There's a lot more to it, but those are I think those are a couple of kind of pivotal elements to it.
Yeah. How many kids do you have, Luke?
I have two. I have a 12-year-old boy and a 9-year-old daughter.
Oh, wow. So you're in the thick of things right now.
Yeah, indeed I am.
Preteen years are coming or here. That's cool. I want to ask you, when it comes to, that retreat that you went to with your dad, why do you think that was what made you really discover that that's what you wanted to do, is help men be better as human beings or people for their families? What made you want to follow that path? Was there something specific
I think there's
in that retreat or?
Yeah, there's something about when we step out of our ordinary lives and into a place where the values are based on getting incredibly real with ourselves and with each other, that things just get a bit brighter. Life slows down. There's like this deeper sense of meaning with that slower pace. And in this case, there's also, because it was a men's retreat, there was this ferocity to how I was asked to examine my own heart, my own mind, what kind of life I wanted to build for myself, what kind of man I wanted to become, that fierceness that, men challenging men, there's like a very distinct element and ingredient around, being surrounded by brothers who are saying, you can do better. There's more here. And that ferocity and that sense of like living for not just my selfish needs, but for, the needs of my community, something really kind of attractive and energizing about that. There's like a gravitational pull to, these moments of depth for me. And I think a lot of people, once we get a taste of like, okay, there's something more here, and maybe it means I need to face some fears and some doubts, and maybe I need to face some pains of the past, or I need to really examine, my deeper motivations and my deeper drives. And when I've done that, there's something quite liberating, energizing, compelling, and essentially, an opportunity to show up more powerfully in the world. So I think all of that, and just being surrounded by like, dudes that'll look you in the eye and say like, I believe in you and you can do it and you can do better. There's something about that brotherhood that, we get it in certain elements in our culture. We get it on sports teams. We get it, there's whispers of it, but to just have like a full, kind of a full-throated support of it. At that point in my life, I was 22. So like I was pretty much the youngest guy there. And it was all these men that were a bit older saying like, I see you, I believe in you, and you can do great things. That's a really powerful thing. Right. And, frankly, like this is the way it used to be in a certain way, like before, it's just in the last couple 100 years that we've become more disconnected to rites of passage and these kind of ceremonial markings of moving from boyhood into manhood. And, so I think it's kind of baked into our DNA that we need this. We actually need it. And if we don't get it, then we'll start to try to seek it out and find it in maladaptive and dangerous ways, and humans will do just about anything to feel a sense of belonging, even if it is self-destructive or harmful to others.
Yeah. There is absolutely, I agree with everything you're saying. And there's absolutely something, I guess the word would be therapeutic, to having that sense of belonging or feeling that raw connection with other men surrounding us. And it could be something as simple as, maybe it's like the retreat that you and your dad went to. Maybe it's even something as simple as going to a therapist and talking with a therapist about discovering who you are and discovering why you think the way you think and discovering how to get through past issues that you had as a child or whatnot, that will help you elevate your game as an individual or a man. But there is something therapeutic about that. And the reason I say that is because I have like this group of guys that I report to, or they report to me. And I call them my board of directors. And they're my personal board of directors. And I've had these guys on my board for almost 3 years now. And it's a group of 7 other guys. And I handpicked these men and even went through the whole process of, look, I sent about 20 to 30 emails or texts out asking guys that were on this list. And I narrowed it down to these 7 guys. And they all agreed to be on the board. They all agreed to help me out. They all agreed to meet via Zoom once every other month. And I even had them sign contracts, Luke.
Nice.
I put a contract together, and they had to sign it and I had to sign it. And in that contract were things that detailed how they were going to be helpful to me and what they were going to do for me as far as being truthful, being honest, being open, being, all those different things. And then I shared the same with them in the part of the contract that I signed, that I'm going to be open and honest about all my struggles or stuff that I haven't done or did do or whatever the case may be. And like I said, I meet with these guys once every other month, and it's an hour-long conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And as much as I have gained out of it over the last 3 years, I specifically picked these guys to help me. I have a financial advisor on my board. I have a guy who's really big in faith. All these men are really big, except for one who's not married, but all these men are really big in their marriage. I have several entrepreneurs on my board. So they were specifically picked for certain reasons or areas of my life that I wanted to improve in. And as much as I have grown from having these group of guys in my life, they have all grown too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's crazy when we hear the old saying, you basically become the people that you hang out with.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to be a better human being and you want to stop doing the stuff that you're doing, stop hanging out with the guys that are making you do that stuff or causing you to do that stuff in a sense. You hang out with guys that cheat on their spouses or go to the bars or all those kinds of things or gambling, and you're hanging out with those guys, you're going to do that kind of stuff as well. So we need to surround ourselves with healthy, like-minded guys that we want to aspire to be or become. And that's why I did that with this board of directors.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, man. It's there's this idea that iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
Right. Like consciousness sharpens consciousness. If we surround ourselves by men that are, no BS, going to give it to you straight, exactly what they're experiencing from you, and give you that just very cutting, but compassionate feedback about, brother, you can do better in this area. I see you, like, you're doing great in this area, but this area, you need to really look at this, and there's a ferocity, but a compassion to that. We will absolutely become a better version of ourselves. It's been a very necessary aspect to my own growth, my own kind of evolution as a man, is to surround myself by men that have something that I feel like I could get a little bit more of, right? Like that there's this idea of up leveling, right? that we find the men, surround ourselves by brothers who have some way that they're living their life that I feel like I could learn something from, and then invite them into being that kind of iron sharpening iron, brotherhood with me. And yeah, I agree. Like men's circles have been probably the single most catalytic thing I've done in my life to become a better version of myself. And we're at this, to your point about it being kind of therapeutic, we're at this point where there's like shifting tides around male identity, right? And it's in a constant state of redefinition, right? Yeah. One of the benefits of the moment we're in right now is there is more and more recognition that me facing my own doubts, fears, hurts of the past, tender places in my heart is actually a sign of power, not a sign of weakness. Absolutely. A man who can be fully embodied and aware of his emotions and aware of his impact on others has a level of sensitivity to effectively navigate the world and influence those around him is actually more powerful than those that are shut down. There's a way that we can get more done in the world when we are much more emotionally attuned, and I think that's one of the great benefits of this changing landscape around what it means to be a man. Now there's a lot of baggage and a lot of stuff that is kind of nonsense around this as well, but I do think we're in a moment where we're recognizing actually a powerful man has a strong spine but also has an open heart, and he has the capacity to really feel that in himself.
Yeah. I think when you talk about that stuff, I think about men that are trying to be the right role models for their sons, but also have the soft, emotional, sensitive side of them for their daughters, right? And I guess for your sons too. But when it comes to our own kids, we have to lead a life that we want our children to represent when they get older. We will always want our children to be better than us, right? I have two boys. They're 24 and 20. My youngest will be 22 next week. We always want them to be better than who we are. But at the same time, we want to make sure that they're not less of us, right? Because they're representing who we are and they're representing the family. So we want to make sure that we're teaching them and being a proper role model for them. And what you're talking about there with really this redefining moment of men kind of breaking out of that old shell and putting the ego aside, right? All those different things apply. I think it's remarkable for not only us as men, but for our kids to witness, because it will help them as they grow.
Yeah, there's a yeah, we're setting them up to be able to more capably live the lives that they want to live, right? Not have so much kind of stuffed in the shadows. If we I like this idea that if we want to understand our own blind spots, there's two things you can do to really understand where you've got some unacknowledged kind of baggage that's holding you back. One is become a father. Your kids will definitely show you in the way that they either emulate you or replicate your funky behaviors. Like they will show it to us very quickly and easily. It doesn't take long, 2 or 3 years. All of your shadows and shortcomings will start to be revealed to you, right? Yeah. So that's where parenting is this glorious path around self-awareness and self-discovery, because we have these little mirrors just saying, either emulating us or resisting some part of us that is hung up, or some sort of trauma of the past or pain of the past. The other thing, if you want to know your blind spots and your shadows, go start a company or go lead a team, right? Like get in a leadership role with other humans, and you will see very quickly how your shadows show up in the way that you lead and the way that you go carry out a mission with a group of other people. And that's another great way to see our shortcomings and our blind spots, right?
And get married.
Yes, of course. The relationship would be the trifecta.
Relationship, yeah.
Intimate relationship, marriage. All the little things start to become very big over time. So
yeah, absolutely. I do think you're right. I mean, I see more and more of men of this evolution of men trying to change and be better for their families, be better for their companies, whatever it is that they're doing. But I still do see some of the disconnect between I'm talking specifically in the family dynamic or the family role. But I still see this disconnect. And that was one of the reasons why I started the podcast, is because I've witnessed it in my own circle of relationships of guys that I've known. I've witnessed it in my own area where men were just kind of disconnected from their families, whether they were trying to grow their business or grow the work on their company, or they just didn't have an interest to really be around that much. They were more interested in either working or going and doing their own personal things. And that was really the reason behind the show, is that I wanted to show fathers that, yes, you can still have a successful company. You can still be a successful entrepreneur. You can still make all the money you want to make. And at the same time, you can still be a successful father. You can still be a successful husband. It takes a little bit more work and a little bit more drive or passion behind doing it, and the desire to want to do it. But you can be those things, because I've done it and I know it's possible, right? And people like Luke has done it, so he knows it's possible. What advice, the reason I bring all that up is, what advice would you give to men that may be feeling stuck right now, that are really trying to rediscover who they are, to not only be better for themselves, but also be better for their family? What kind of advice would you give them?
It's a great question. Let me frame it in this way. So we as men have been enculturated to believe that our value and our worth is based primarily on our ability to provide. And there's some truth to that, right? But it's not the whole story, right? And so, but the culture will squeeze us into say, like, you're only as good as the amount of money that you make and security you provide for your family. As men, we have an opportunity to expand our definition of what it means to be successful and fulfilled. And if we expand that definition to include, what are the quality of the relationships with my family and my children? Are they thriving? And am I doing everything I can to be there for them? And that's also my definition of living a fulfilled life. That will help liberate that cultural programming, the squeeze that happens from boyhood into manhood to say, like, success is the dollar, the bank account, right? Not saying it isn't important, and there's no reason why it can't also be there. Now, the other aspect of this is there is a burden on men's shoulders to provide, right? And that there is a burden to that we all carry about this, just our role, right? The mother and the feminine have their own version of burden, but for us, it's about the weight of demands, people needing stuff from us. Our children need something from us. They need food. They need our attention. They need our love. Our partner needs something from us. They need our love. They need, us to show up. The people we're leading at work, they all need something. Everybody needs a piece of us, right? And there's this author that writes about men and men's psychology. His name's David Data, and he talks about men. If we're going to really live a fulfilled life, we need to be at times in a space of no demand, right? So what does that mean? A space of no demand. It means that we occasionally have time where nobody needs anything from us. And we have a chance to recharge, reload our energy, our connection to ourself, our sense of purpose. And, this is like, one version of this is like the man cave, right? It's like, don't bother me. I'm going to be watching the game,
right.
Check, I'll see you in 6 hours kind of thing, right? Well, that's a version of this, right? There's a way that we can probably do that a little more intentionally where we get a bit more nourishment. So for me, this means I have to have at least a half a day walking in the forest once a week by myself with nobody else, or I start to just get really resentful of all the people that need a piece of me. And so there's, over time, I've discovered I have a morning meditation and reflection process, a practice that I just need to do that every day, where it's like, everybody knows, my kids know, Dada is meditating right now. Do not bother him. He'll be out in 45 minutes. And then on the weekends, getting out and being gone for a few hours and getting my batteries recharged, or going on a retreat, 3-4 times a year where I'm gone for, a long weekend or a week. And this is the way of like bypassing what inevitably happens to men, which is just the weight of the world, Atlas on our shoulders to provide for our family. And then the resentment that follows and the reactivity and the short fuse with our children and our partner, because we haven't actually taken care of ourselves. Now most men are like, we're like good men. We want to do what's right for our family. So we will sacrifice our own needs around nourishment and recharging our batteries to the point where it actually works against us. It works against our connection to our loved ones. So this is the one piece of advice I have, which is like, find a way to get into that space of no demand so that you really do get recharged.
Yeah. That well said. I love everything that you shared there. You're right on point with it. It's something that I preach regularly, not only on my show, but on social media, as well as the dads that I coach. There's got to be a point where you are essentially filling up your cup before you're taking care of everybody else. And it's simple. You have to do that because if you're broken or hurting or weak, you're not going to be able to care for that other person or that family that needs you. So you need to make sure that your cup is full. And I'm a big believer in the family dynamic being the foundation. The foundation of your relationship within the family is really the catalyst to success, not only in the family, but outside the home. So your legacy really starts within your home, not at your company, not outside your home. And if there are things that aren't working in your home, things are going to start to fall apart outside the home. It's the way it works. And for us as men, yes. And you know what? This works the same for moms or women too. They need to do the same thing. We're not just saying this is just a man thing. No,
that's right.
Women need to do the same thing. But men specifically, talking to them right now, you guys need to take a moment every day to refill your cup. And I don't know if that's first thing in the morning. I don't know if that's midday. I don't know if it's in the evening. But like you said, you go through meditation every morning. I work out every single morning. I get up early and I work out, whether it's a run or weights or just a walk. I do work out every single day. And then I like to journal. And now journaling for me is it's just a couple of sentences that I just write down that just kind of helps me just get things off my mind, right? It usually when we first wake up in the morning, we've got so many things that we're already thinking about the day. And I like to just get that stuff out of my mind so I can just focus on myself and the day. So yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Refilling our cup. And yeah, you're very well said.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's this period often that if we haven't been doing this, everybody's used to a certain pattern of how each person's showing up in the family. And so there's this transitional period that maybe is a little clunky and requires some conversations. So this could mean that if people realize, if any of the men listening say like, I've realized I need more time to fill my cup, there's maybe the first step is actually a conversation with your partner to say, look, I'm realizing I'm running on empty. I'm not showing up the best way I can for you or for the kids. And I'd like to shift this a little bit where I get a bit of a break every, week or so. And in order to do that, I think you do too. Like, how can we set this up where we both are getting a bit more breathing room to recharge and so that we can both show up, in a clearer way for the marriage, for the kids. And then there's like a period of experimentation around like, okay, what works and what's too much, and is she getting what she needs? And so I would just, it's not an overnight easy fix. It's actually changing the structure of how the family operates a little bit and placing a value and a principle at the center of it, which is we will be better parents and partners to each other if we're getting a bit of a break occasionally. This is particularly hard with young children. And so it takes a level of commitment and experimentation and practice and making mistakes and being in a bit of a messy process for a bit in order to get it to a place where people really are getting their needs met. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when you have younger kids, obviously with older kids like me, it's
way easier.
Easy. Yeah, it's easy. So for those of you parents out there that still can't leave your kids home alone and go off to run errands or a movie or something, just hang tight because it's coming. And when it happens, it's awesome.
It gets better. It gets better.
Yeah. But no, you're
better.
Right.
Just hang in there.
Yeah. With younger kids, it may come down to a point where, hey, my day that I'm going to take a couple hours to myself is going to be on Mondays, and maybe yours is on Wednesdays. And in that time, you're covering for the kids and she's covering for the kids. So you have to work around it. And I agree. You got to find what works. One of the things that I tell the dads that I coach is, one of the common denominators that comes up when I'm talking with these guys is I have a hard time separating my work from home, meaning I'm just amped up, stressed out, had a tough day, and then I got to come home and I'm already getting it or hearing it or dealing with stuff at home, and I just can't get the two separated. And this comes down to one of those things about filling up your cup, making sure you're recharged. And one of the things that I recommend to dads out there is that yes, there needs to be a day in a week that maybe you're taking an hour or two to recharge. There needs to be some time each day. Maybe it's 30 minutes where you're recharging, but maybe there's a time each day that you need to spend 10 or 15 minutes to recharge. And for you specifically, dads that are having a hard time coming in the door and separating your work or your business life from your family life, you need to take an extra 15 minutes before you walk in the door and recharge. And what that means is you need to maybe take an extra drive. I don't recommend listening to podcasts. I don't recommend listening to audiobooks. I recommend listening to good music, upbeat music that you like to listen to that kind of change your mood. And maybe it's just a matter of you sitting in the driveway in your car and just, in a sense, meditating and relaxing and getting yourself ready to transition from businessman or business person to family man or family person. So that's just a couple of my sidebar
Yeah,
tips for dads out there.
absolutely. And I love this, right? Like there's so many different practices and methods that we can do there. And it, treat that as an experiment. Like what really works for me? For
Mm-hmm.
me, like doing a bit of a breath practice, kind of a
Mm-hmm.
Wim Hof style breath practice, super energizing, clears the mind. I can do it in like 3 to 4 minutes, and it
Mm-hmm.
just completely resets where I'm focused and my sense of kind of stress. That's a practice that I've learned and cultivated, right? But you kind of have to find your own thing. If it's not like meditation, maybe it's prayer, maybe it's exercise, maybe it's music. Everybody kind of has their thing that will work for them. And so treat it as an experiment to find out and also get some help. Like there's meditation apps that will,
Mm-hmm.
have a quick 10-15 minute guided meditation if you've never done it before. I like Calm, by the way. That's my favorite. But like get some support. This is also where a men's group can be really helpful, is
Right.
crowdsource from your brothers. Hey, what do you think would be good for me in this moment of transition, right? This is like getting that fierce feedback of iron sharpening iron from guys that really get us and know us, right? So
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the examples that I was sharing there were just examples that I have used myself,
mm-hmm.
and that have worked. Another thing that I encourage dads to try to practice with, it's a little unique in that it's not real, but when you come home, I like to tell them, imagine that there's a wall between your car and the
Mm-hmm.
front door. And
Nice.
once you cross that wall, you're a completely different person. Now, business is on the other side of the wall. You can't even hear it. You can't see it. And now you're with your family. And then when you cross back over into that business side, that wall back to your business side, yes, I'm all checked in with business, and I'm 100% dialed in on my company and business for the
Mm-hmm.
day or for the hour or whatever it is. Anyways, cool. I love that. I love the meditation part of it. How important is it for you as a dad to teach your kids about, I don't know, meditation? Because you know what? Kids really should have moments where they're recharging.
Yeah.
And it could just be simply reading, maybe going for a walk with their mom or dad, or maybe it's just meditating, teaching our kids how to do breath work.
Mm-hmm.
They may not fully understand it at their ages, but it's important to teach our kids that stuff, because once they do become adults and life really hits them on the chin, they'll be better equipped to handle challenges or
Yeah.
frustrations or stress if we teach it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I love this statement and question from you. I think it's really important. I would just pull up even maybe a little further from it and just say, one of the things that I have come to believe my role as a father to be is to pull my children out of their everyday kind of myopic, habitual lives and expose them to a multitude of different ways of experiencing the world and different experiences, different adventures, different
Mm-hmm.
places. My job as a father is to help expand horizons and, help them see the world in different ways from different angles and experience that, right? So part of that is like, I love to take my kids on trips, even if it's just like a camping trip an hour from our house or to some other part of the world or the country, to experience different cultures. That's something I take a lot of pride in. I regularly take them on pretty intense adventures into the backcountry, into the wilderness, into the wild, where they get to see the rhythms of life, get to really have an experience of wonderment and awe at the natural beauty of the earth, of the stars, the cosmos, exposing them to to experiences that help them understand how small we are, but how much possibility there is to live a full life. That's one of my main jobs as a father, right? I view this, at least in my family, it's slightly different than the role of their mother. And of course, I need to be, looking at giving some gifts that she gives. But really, the thing that I love about fatherhood is this aspect, right? So as part of that, there are practices and experiences that I want them to have, to try on to see like if it's helpful to them in kind of regulating their nervous system or having some new experience. So I have definitely taught my children yoga, meditation, breath work from a very early age. And they, they use it in the way that they use it, right? I don't expect that they will meditate 45 minutes a day like I do, but it's present and available, and it's kind of so normalized for them that, I do, where I see it is like, there's moments when, for example, my son he's very into mountain biking. He's on a mountain biking team. He does races. And before a race, I will see him close his eyes, put his hand on his belly, and do belly breathing, which I taught him, where he's like slowing his breath down, getting really present. He's got all those jitters and nerves that he's trying to channel. And I've seen him do it a couple of times where he'll just slow down, go within, harness all of that kind of anxiety and channel it, where he's using his breath to regulate himself and get more grounded so that he has a good clean start, and he's really present with, in mountain biking, the starts are like very chaotic, right?
Right,
a lot of people in a very small area that are trying to go very fast. And so he really wants to be clear and ready for that. So he gets himself centered for that. My daughter's an actress performer. She likes to be on stage, and, to be 8 years old and step out in front of, 100 people with all the lights and everything, there's a lot of stress in that. And, we regularly talk about helping her do some breath practices right before she goes on to help her calm the nerves, essentially. Right. So I think these are examples of like where it can be really helpful.
Yeah. And I'm sure that when you witness your son doing that, it's a proud dad moment. I can imagine you just get warm just thinking about him doing that or seeing him doing that. That's very, very cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. So, parents that you were out there, these kind of techniques are not only good for us, but good for our children. They benefit them and will only help them later in life. Like he just shared with his son, who's, 12. But when he gets older, he understands this concept now of really channeling the energy and kind of releasing any anxiety or stress that he may have. It's important for our kids to learn it. And you as parents have to model it. So if you're a stress case and if you are full of anxiety and frustration or quick tempered, but you're trying to teach your kids how to be, through breath work or meditation, it's not going to work. You've got to model it. You've got to model it as a parent.
Yeah, exactly. The way that we talk about fear in our family and just on some of the programs I run is like, it's a very natural human emotion that occurs for all of us. It's actually a brilliant evolutionary survival mechanism.
It's healthy.
It's right. Yeah. So it's like this thing that gives us information like, oh, danger, or something I care about is under threat, or I need to be super ready for the moment I'm about to face. And so often, especially when we're children, that fear becomes so overwhelming that we will collapse. And so in kids, I think it's a lot about like feeling the fear, using the breath practices to downregulate enough to be able to do the scary thing anyway, right? The courage is not the absence of fear. It's feeling the fear and doing the thing anyway. Right. And so as a father, I am constantly celebrating, acknowledging, praising, attaboying moments when something hard is happening and my kids do it anyway, even though they're feeling afraid. That is, I think, kids will do pretty much anything to get more of attention and love from their parents. And so I really want to be thoughtful about where I place my praise. And that is a place where I heap praise upon praise upon praise, courage, feeling fear and doing it anyway.
Yeah. That's a great confidence builder. And you talk about, kids really love to be praised when they're doing things. It's human nature. We all like praise, right? It doesn't matter if we're an adult or a child. We all like to be praised that we're doing the right thing or we're doing well at whatever it is we're doing. And kids in particular really have to have that. So yes, there are moments when you have to let your child know that you are disappointed in something that they did or didn't do. They have to understand the boundaries and they have to understand consequences, but it's important to let your child hear how proud you are, to let your child hear that you think that they're doing a great job, those are important too, and they're great confidence builders for them as they get older. The more that you don't show those things or don't tell them those things and instead are harping on them about everything, they're going to be very insecure and have very low self-esteem later in life, and it's detrimental to them. So
yeah, you nailed it. I mean, I think, psychologists talk about this as like healthy ego development. Another way to say, like, what is our sense of who we are, our sense of self, right? And that is it's all getting formed in the first, 15 years, our identity about who we are in the world. And our parents are the main kind of shapers of that, right? So we definitely need to apply pressure and have boundaries around what is not okay. But the praise, I mean, researchers have looked at this ad nauseum for the last, 50, 60, 70 years in psychology. And like the praise and the appreciation and the recognition is actually, it's more helpful in with children kind of when we see a behavior that we want them to replicate or others to emulate, the praise and recognition is critically important in that, because of the ego building that's happening, the sense of self-building. So this is just where it's, for us as fathers to just really focus on when we see something like, yes, more of that. That's amazing. That's such a great job. That goes a long way in their kind of sense of self. Right.
Yeah. So. No, and you're absolutely right. And it starts with even them at the toddler age. It could be something as simple as them trying to take their first step. And you're excited and they get excited and then they fall. Well, if you go over there and baby them because they fell and go, oh, it's okay, and just those kind of things, they're going to be looking for that attention. But if you go over there and say, oh, you did great, pick them up and try to get them to do it again. Let's see you do it again. Then they're going to feel that sense of, I'm getting attention for this. Okay. I'm going to keep doing it. I mean, that's just a silly example, but that's how as far back as it goes when it comes to our kids really love being praised and acknowledged. Absolutely. I think about my own childhood and how I grew up. My parents were very loving parents. My parents were very, they weren't super involved in what I did, but they had jobs that they had to work and my parents had a couple of jobs that they were working at one time. So they weren't able to be super involved in what they did because they were trying to provide food for the family. But, there were moments in my life where I always got good grades in school, but I'd get a B+ on in a class, and my dad would go, "Oh, that's great, you got a B+, but why wasn't it an A-, or why didn't you get an A?" And it's like, that's the absolute worst thing you could say, because now I felt like I didn't meet your expectation of an A, even though I got a B+. Like, that's still good. But those kinds of things, I mean, think about it. I'm 50 years old and I still remember that. Right. So my wife and I have a marriage coach that we go to once a month, but I actually work with this coach as well on a personal side to help me get through some of these little challenges that I still face as a 50-year-old man from when I was a child.
Yeah.
That's how impactful our words and our actions are to our kids, is that it can leave an everlasting effect on their self-esteem and their confidence when they get older.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And just to take a little pressure off, don't worry. I mean, good news, bad news, you will hurt your children. You will mess them up. It's like inevitable. There's no way to be a perfect parent. There's no way to be a perfect father. There will be some sort of imprint that we leave. It's human nature. It's just, it's being human, that we will do things and say things that will leave a mark and will cause some sort of funky pattern in our children. Right. But my hope is that in the same way that my parents worked very hard on cleaning up some of the baggage that their parents gave them, my mother, she really started this process in our family of like ending some generational trauma and some really messed up, funky stuff, right? She did just an amazing job in that. And my father also has, he's been doing men's work now for like 30 years. He's really, and so I hope, like, I build on that and my kids have it a little better, that they're, I think that's the best we can hope, is that there's like these incremental improvements across the generations around healing some of that messiness and just, the trauma that lives in all of us. So,
Yeah. I think you're right. I love that you said that about, we're going to mess up. We're going to do some things that may have some, I guess you could call, for lack of better words, damage to our kids in the way that we parented. Because listen, I always like to say that you do get a parenting manual and it's called the Bible. But we really only learn how to be parents from the influences around us now, right? The other men in my life now, how they are with their kids, and then our own childhood, how our parents were with us, raising us. That's really where we learn how to be a parent. And yes, you're going to make mistakes. My boys are in their 20s and I still make mistakes constantly. And I've been a dad for a long, long time. And all I can say is, for you parents out there, you're going to make mistakes, but you can change it, or you can get better by owning the mistakes, acknowledging those mistakes, and acknowledging those mistakes to the child or children and or your spouse, letting them know, hey, I acknowledged I messed up. I acknowledged I didn't do this right. I acknowledge that I need to work on this. If you are willing to allow me to work on that, I can promise you I'm going to make it, I'm going to give it my best shot. I'm going to do whatever I need to do to be better as a parent or as a spouse. You can fix it and you can change it, and you can see that, you can let your kids see that, yes, we are human. We make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect, but as long as I learn from it and grow, it will help me to be better. And learning from your mistakes only helps you to get better as a human. So, I mean, it's super important.
Yeah. I think that, three of the most important words we can say as fathers is, I am sorry. Just to own it, and we become so much more trustworthy and relatable. And it's what I would want my children to do if they did something that was regrettable, to apologize. Right. And so we don't need to be infallible as fathers. We need to be real and honest. And that's how we'll raise good children, I hope.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, listen, Luke, I want to give you a chance to let everybody know how they can look you up, reach out to you if they want to. Maybe they have questions or whatnot before I let you go. Best places for my listeners to do all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So we run I'll just tell the listeners a bit about a program we run called the Father-Son Connection Experience. It's a rite of passage program for boys 10 to 14 and their fathers, where we take them out for a weekend and have a lot of these types of conversations about how to strengthen their bonds together. They'll spend, a couple hours a day on hikes in the forest together. And then we'll do a lot of work together as a whole group around some of the practices we talked about, meditation and breath work, and really helping the boys get a clear sense of purpose in their lives, and helping the fathers connect more deeply with their boys. And then we'll do a bit of a ceremony to mark their entrance into adolescence. And we do a little bit around kind of changing bodies and hitting puberty and setting them up to have some deeper conversations with their dads about that. And that's the Father-Son Connection Experience. It's at fathersonconnection.com. We're running 2 of them in 2024. So we got a couple coming up here shortly. And, that's really the main place people can find me. You can reach out if you want to know more. You can reach out through fathersonconnection.com.
Cool. And then I'll put that in the show notes, make sure it's in the show notes for them to do that. Also, he's active on Instagram. You can reach him there. But I'm really curious about that father-son connection myself. My boys are obviously in their 20s, but I may have to check it out myself.
Yeah, come on. We're always looking for, good men to just be there to help support the dads around being better fathers. And just, it's good to have some, it's my vision for this always was to get together some really amazing kind, present, fierce men, and surround these boys with some really good role models about what it means to be a man, and have a weekend in the woods to just really drop in and talk about these things and have some fresh experiences. And so, yes, you are most welcome to come join us and experience this. My favorite moment, by the way, if you can imagine, having a group of like 10 to 12 boys, getting ready in their bathing suits to jump into a freezing cold 40-degree mountain stream together, and all the mental preparation, meditation, psyching themselves up, and their dads cheering them on, saying, you can do it, and then jumping in that cold mountain stream. And again, it's all about the thing about doing something uncomfortable that we don't want to do, but doing it anyway, and then feeling the invigoration and life rush in after that. So that's my I will always remember this picture of the first time we did this, and that's really the essence of what this experience is about.
Oh, that's really powerful. That's really neat. I love that. And then the kids telling the dads to do it. Go ahead, Dad.
Oh yeah,
you're next.
Actually, most of the dads did it first, right?
Okay.
So this is how it usually goes. The dads get in first, and kind of like, because they're a little more ready for it, and then they cheer their boys on as they do it.
That's cool. So make sure you guys are checking that out. If you're interested, he's got a couple of them next year. And like I said, I may have to look into it myself just so I can participate and see what the experience is all about. But Luke, listen, man, it has been an honor, privilege. I've really enjoyed our conversation. You shared so much. And I'm looking forward to growing our friendship, continuing this this friendship that we have now. And I'm looking forward to someday meeting you in person instead of through social media.
Yeah, that'd be great, Bryan. Yeah, just love what you're doing, man. Just love the show. Love what you're up to. So thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Appreciate you being on. Listen, everybody, this has been another episode of Dad Up. I want to thank my good friend again, Luke Entrup, for being on the show. Make sure you guys are checking out the links that are in the show notes. Make sure you guys, if you're interested in that retreat that he has coming up, he has a couple different things coming up. So you can check all that out on his links. But please do that because he's a wealth of knowledge when it comes to really building ourselves up as human beings and really becoming better for not only ourselves, but for our families as well. So, and if you have not yet subscribed to my show, please make sure you do that so you don't miss any of the awesome guests that I have on each and every week. And as always, I look forward to seeing you all on the next episode of Dad Up. Wow, another amazing episode in the books. So much was shared, and I'm truly grateful my guest was able to pour into you to help you elevate your dad game and really dad up. Make sure you bang that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're here, please don't forget to leave me a rating and a review. I always appreciate the feedback. And one last thing, don't forget, your role as a dad is one of the most important roles you have. So if you need a little help or have questions, don't hesitate to reach out to me on my website at daduptribe.com or at my Instagram page at Dad Up Podcast. Until next time, everyone, Dad Up.